Welcome to the 32nd episode of the Skills Factory. Talks and ideas about skills from Europe and beyond. Here are some of the recent headlines from the news. School leaders warn artificial intelligence is a real and present danger to education. AI don't replace teachers, but a classroom revolution is coming. Schools bewildered by AI advances, say head teachers. Today, we speak about risks and the opportunities that generative AI can bring to the education system. Let me introduce our guest for this conversation, Guy Levi, expert in innovative pedagogy from Israel. Hi, Guy.
Hi.
And Fabio Nascimbeni from European Training Foundation. Hello, Fabio.
Hello, hello.
One can have a proper and meaningful conversation with artificial intelligence. True or false?
True.
True.
Artificial intelligence could provide more personalized and adaptive learning experience than a human teacher. True or false?
True and false. It depends on the teacher. For some teacher it's true, for some teacher it's false.
True if the teacher is able to steer that.
The teaching profession will undergo major changes in the upcoming years, and as soon as 2030, the teachers will have totally different tasks. True or false?
True.
True, and systems need to support them, leaving them the space to experiment to reach that.
In your recent article, you've mentioned that you have had a dialogue with artificial intelligence. Do you think it's possible to have a dialogue or conversation with AI?
I've developed sort of a theory, a triangle of HI, human intelligence, AI, artificial intelligence, and CI, collective intelligence. And normally what we have in education system and in life is conversation, dialogue, relationship between humans. But what happened here is that a new partner is entering the scene, a very, very smart partner. So what does it make? It makes conversation to become dynamic, back and forth exchange of information. For example, a learner might interact with AI tutor, asking question and receiving answer. Similarly, AI can pose questions to human to clarify ambiguities, which is extremely important. And we'll talk about it hopefully in this conversation. And lastly, dialogue. Dialogue is beyond mere conversation. It implies a deeper level of interaction. That's the idea.
Guy, but you said there is a triangle. So artificial intelligence, human intelligence, and collective intelligence. What is in the top? So what is the biggest one?
No, it's always on the top is human intelligence. 6 years ago, I formulated it's like a formula. I said always and always and always HI is over AI. And it's going to be like that as long as we live, as long as this world, exists. And this is something extremely important that we'll have to refer to it later today.
Fabio, how often do you have a conversation with artificial intelligence?
I have to say quite often, but normally it is a conversation where I'm asking something and I'm receiving a response. It's not really a one-to-one, same level conversation. So I think we are getting there. It's just a matter of not so much calculating power or improving the machine. It's more a matter of human-machine interaction. Our understanding of what the machine can do. And actually, when I say ours, it's not only ours individually. I really love the concept of collective intelligence into the picture proposed by Guy, because I think, we talk about crowd intelligence a lot and co-creation a lot. But if you look really in the classroom, I think this is not happening all the time because it's a very complicated process which needs a lot of push, a lot of orchestration from the educator typically. I mean, putting that into the framework, into the picture is really showing the power of artificial intelligence, not just to help the individual, but really to help the crowd, to help the group. And this, I think, opens up a full number of possibilities and conversations.
One of the extraordinary things I found these days is that all the experts I'm talking to, they're really positive about AI and its role in education. But what are the risks of using, for instance, ChatGPT as a partner in learning?
Maybe you'll be surprised. I think the risk is over-reliance on AI. That's the risk. Over-relying on ChatGPT might risk weakening specific cognitive and metacognitive skills. I think this is the danger, but we can overcome it by crafting a good conversation and a dialogue with the machine. And effective integration of AI and CI can really amplify our cognitive capacity. And again, the AI is the new medium, is the new partner that really amplify everything. However, critical thinking is the most important skill now, by far. We must invest in critical thinking and make it the center of schooling and learning. It has, of course, numerous of other pedagogical implications, but if you ask me, how would you disrupt the school curriculum? I said 25% critical thinking and another 50% skills, and because content now in this reality becomes context. And it also has to do with brain and learning. We may talk about it later.
Human being is lazy. How can we avoid this over-reliance on artificial intelligence in education?
Well, I think a guy nailed it. It's by investing on critical thinking and by investing really in soft skills. I mean, in the capacity to understand not only what AI can do for us in a lazy way and let him do it, but really understand the whole context of this new machine interaction. And actually, this, again, I have the feeling that when talking about risks, we are focusing a lot on system risks, security, privacy, all of these things are very important. But all of these things, sooner or later, will be tackled by educational systems, the Commission, the European Commission, UNESCO, and practically every organization is working on this. But actually, the human risks, what happens in the brain of a human that is no more interacting with an educator or with the crowd, but with the machine, what happens there is really, I think, the highest risk, because once you have really lost the capacity really to go alone along your learning and to drive your learning because you're letting something else driving it, there is very difficult to come back. So I think critical thinking, to me, I would say even more than 25%, if I may, Guy.
Both of you spoke about this over-reliance. What happens when a partner is way, way more smarter than any human living on this planet? Do you think there is a risk of AI overtaking the teaching profession?
What we really have to do within the curriculum, again, it goes back to critical thinking, and we have to make teachers orchestrators of the learning process, of the learning of the curriculum, of everything. Orchestrating means orchestrating the collective intelligence and the artificial intelligence. The orchestrator is the teacher.
Humans are lazy by definition, and if we can obtain an objective in a quicker way, we typically do it. And if you think of the famous paradigm of learn, unlearn, and relearn, this is a very difficult process. People learn one thing, and if they like it, they keep on doing it for all their life. They find a job and they become better and better, and they discover new things. AI can really help this process of learning and learning. There again, the educator is key. And a few years ago, or decades ago, we were saying, every educator, every teacher will have to know how to program because everybody will be a coder. And now with AI, there will be almost no more coders. People asking machine to code for us in a coordinated and, of course, human-driven way. And so in that case, what do teachers have to become? Again, orchestrators and people able to talk at the same time with machines, students, experts, parents, and so on.
Fabio, what about developing countries? I mean, there is already a huge divide, and we saw this divide even bigger during the COVID times when the teachers have to switch to online, and many teachers in developing countries, they were not able to because first they didn't have equipment and then they didn't have the right skills. This AI revolution, it brings even more risks of having a bigger digital divide because if you don't have internet connection, you can't use AI.
The exclusion potential of AI is clear there. So there is an issue, famous geopolitics of AI. I mean, The first thing is that who is actually behind these developments now? So these are typically very large companies from the US or China with their own agenda. It's the market, baby, makes perfect sense. And it works like this, of course. You have plenty of small startups around this, which are doing fantastic things, but let's say the big development comes from there. It's not only about connectivity, I would say. Connectivity is one part of the issue. The other part is that the solutions that we are discussing now, this positive understanding of AI in the classroom with conversations that can enrich and support processes that we want to see, might not happen if systems are not ready, if educators are not ready, if there is not this investment in critical thinking and other skills. This, to me, is the main system risk. The fact that AI is actually increasing the divide, not so much between and among education system, but between and among learners and workers from global south and, let's say, the north. The good thing is that everybody, I mean, UNESCO and the Commission and all of these organizations have this problem into the radar. So this problem is understood, and this is already a very important first step. Now, I think the solution will come with AI developments. For the moment, we have issues. We don't really know what will happen in the next weeks or months. Don't even think about years. So we don't even know how much computer power, which kind of other solutions will come. Maybe they will need less computer power. I think we need to really find ways to equalize this and to make sure that, for example, the fact that these machines are trained typically by workers, by people, not only in the global south, but mostly in the global south, by thinking as people in San Francisco, I'm now stigmatizing, is posing an issue. Because, you know, do we want a world that thinks like Silicon Valley? Do we want a world that allows different ways of thinking? I don't have a solution, I'm afraid.
So, Fabio, you believe that politicians, policymakers have to impose certain things to these big tech companies? So AI is not an exclusively used tool by wealthy economies?
Politicians have to enter in a dialogue with these companies. It happened in the US. It is going to happen in Europe soon. I think imposing will not really work because these companies and the sector is moving so fast that this regulation will always be late by definition, simply because this is a very fast-moving technology. So I think, again, here, a constructive dialogue, of course, where politicians or, let's say, government take the lead.
Yeah, I think the EU is the leader in everything, but this is just one thing. What is important is that the EU should lead the regulation, but that's not enough. Because if we are, and I believe we are, in a threshold and in a process of a paradigm shift, of a pedagogical paradigm shift, of a learning paradigm shift, we have to provide education systems, meaning schools, principals, teachers, students, parents, the condition to change education. And the way most education systems are regulated now, they don't do it. We do have lots of cracks now in the existing paradigms. What regulators, what education systems, countries should do, allow educators and all stakeholders to fill in the cracks. And the way they should allow to fill in the cracks, it means give them more time for other things, reduce the curriculum, less content, much more skills, critical thinking, and all this kind of thing that Fabio was talking about. And then it will open the room for innovation, creativity, collaboration of teachers and students, and all these things that can really, really push for this pedagogical paradigm change.
Now, coming back to the big elephant in the room, both of you have mentioned critical thinking. One of the journalists with whom I spoke recently told me that artificial intelligence will force all of us to doubt about everything. Every news we read, every piece of text, every picture we see. I think many of you can remember the picture of Pope Francis that was generated by AI. And according to this journalist, this is a fantastic news, as the whole world is getting more critical and analytical about the information. But critical thinking, we speak about it for 30 years, that we need to develop more of it. How do we develop it now when we really need to keep up with AI. And in order to have it as a partner, we really need to apply critical thinking massively everywhere.
It's an issue of how we see the teaching system. So for years, we have been putting patches on the system, and critical thinking was one of the patches, is coming out continuously, as you say. What should be the teacher's digital competencies? You have a number of normative frameworks, A, B, C, D. This is what the teacher should be doing. And we are keeping on adding to these things, new skills, new curriculum, and the poor educators, I mean, they are not superhuman. They need time to experiment with students. They need space and so on. And now I think we are in a lucky situation. And I think the challenge is really to think, can critical thinking and these new skills, AI ready critical thinking, not general critical thinking, can this really be transversal across the curriculum in every single area of a teacher competence framework? And if we are able to do so, and the how is difficult, as the main objective, we might have at least, I would say, an army of critical thinking teachers. And this would already be something. I'm not saying that, of course, fake news and deep fakes are alerting society, but I'm not sure that society will automatically transform into a society of critical thinkers. That's why we have education systems, formal and informal. So I think that is possibly the best place to start.
I know the education system in 2 European countries, and in both of those countries, 90% of time in school is spent memorizing. Even in Europe, that we say that in some occasions set example in terms of regulating AI, but even in Europe, still education is about memorizing, not about analytical thinking or critical thinking. So how can we do this jump into the new paradigm? And we need to be quick.
Of course, we need to be quick. Policymakers, they have to make a decision. EU certainly must push for that. No question about that. But there is also another thing. What we found out in the READY project and in other projects that I'm involved is that the most important thing in terms of pedagogy is metacognitive skills. Critical thinking is also part of metacognitive skills. And we have this saying, no metacognition, no learning. And metacognition is something that teachers don't use because it's hard. And normally the excuse is, oh, we didn't have time, we didn't complete the material and all this nonsense like that. And now when we have these generative AI tools, metacognitive skills can be really in the forefront, and we can train generative AI tools to be critical and reflective during the dialogue, during the conversation. It's only the way we orchestrate and we manage the machine. And that's what we have to understand.
The speed of change in education systems is really slow. Meanwhile, AI is advancing at the speed of light. Do you think there is a risk that education for at least some period will become irrelevant for the learners? Do you think there is a risk of losing a generation of learners because education will adapt very, very slowly?
In these advanced countries, we're not going to lose a generation of learning. We may lose a generation of teachers, of educators. That's what I think. However, as Fabio said before, this is not should be our concern. And if UNESCO and EU and OECD are coming with, AI ethical guides or AI guides for educators, that's not enough. Policy papers, white papers is good to have. It's extremely important, but this is just the initial step. And the most important thing is how to really implement these in third world countries and places that you really need to change the educational paradigm. I don't have a solution. I just call on all these, regulators, policymakers to understand the times we are. History taught us that they don't understand.
Fabio, what do you think? The policymakers in these developing countries, do they understand the volume of change that is happening already now?
I would say they don't, not only in the global south, they don't in any place. And if you look at the discussions at the policy level, of course, there is this sense of urgency and there is this sense that we need to learn more about this. And actually, I would have an advice for policymakers, that is, talk to companies, talk to startups. Every time I talk to somebody in the business, I not only understand the speed of change, but I understand really in 10 minutes how things can really evolve and what is really the speed of change and what solutions could be put in place. My advice is really take the time, talk to the startups, talk to these people who are actually doing things, because these people will tell you, might provide you some entry points, some new understandings, some different views of how this technology can be, again, not only regulated, but can be actually managed and steered. Policy, again, is by definition slower than the market. This happens everywhere. The risk is, again, to focus on the easy target that is educators. We have a lot of ethical concerns and guidelines for educators. I haven't seen ethical guidelines for learners, for example, for informal learners.
To summarize our conversation today, I think the volume of change, the size of change is such a big thing, and the speed of change is even bigger. But as you said, we need to focus on critical thinking. Critical thinking skills will be life-saving skills, but there is no understanding from policymakers. So I really can't see how system change can keep up with actual change in the society that is brought by AI. I would like to thank our speakers, Guy Levi, an expert in innovative pedagogy from Israel. Thanks a lot, Guy.
Thank you.
And Fabio Nascimbeni from European Training Foundation. Thanks a lot, Fabio.
Thank you very much.
And stay tuned, because there is much more to come. Goodbye.